reimagining retail commerce with alternative payment methods for a digital-facing future. So what a good way to start. So if I could go along the line and introduce you, if you can introduce yourselves, just to let you know that Rahul isn't with us today, but everybody else is. So if we start from this end, Tiago, and go along, that will be brilliant.
Okay, thank you. Can you guys hear me? Is that okay? Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Thiago. I'm a senior product manager at Danone. I've been working in fintech and technology for 8 years now. I've worked in Experian, Creditas, a financing company in Brazil, and now I take care of the checkout journey at Danone. And I'm really happy to be here to talk to you about payments today.
And Tiago's got some great situations where he's applied alternative payment methods. And I really want you to hear what he's been doing. So our next guest.
Hi everyone. My name is Karina. I'm a senior product manager at lastminute.com. And I also been working in neobanks, Nubank, Revolut. I've integrated with loads of different payment methods, so I'm really happy to be here today with you.
One of the original .com businesses set up in the 90s, lastminute.com, so it's great to have you here. And David.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dave. I come with about 20 years of payments experience, initially at Amex and then PayPal for about 13 years, and I headed up enterprise sales there for 5 or 6 years, and then partnerships with e-commerce platforms like the Shopifys and the Magentas of the world. More recently, I'm a recovered founder, and then I've joined a fintech called Super Payments, and I'm now advising and consulting a couple of fintech startups.
Yeah, so it's a real smorgasbord here. And finally, Irene. Hi, how are you?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Irene from Unlimit. I'm glad to join our today's discussion from the side of the payment provider. Unlimit is an international acquirer which also specializes on alternative payment methods, especially in the emerging, more difficult markets. And our mission is to unite these two worlds. From one side, the world of retailers, to help them grow, to help them develop and optimize their checkout flows and conversions. And from the other side, the world of myriads of payment methods, card schemes, to provide seamless and easy payment experience for the users globally.
I just have to make this observation that we have a panel which is more women than men, so that's good as well, for once. So, how are you reimagining retail commerce with alternative payment methods? ... Who would like to start?
I think I can talk from a retailer perspective. I forgot to mention, but Danone is one of the biggest retailers in the UK. We have 180 stores, opening more and more stores every year, and a huge e-commerce business. So I think for us, APMs, they come down to not only conversion, but revenue per session is something that we're looking at very much now, because something really interesting that we found is every payment method for our given market has an average order value, and that affects a lot how much you're getting from that payment method. So when it comes down to how we want to have our checkout look like, I want to be able to prioritize and to personalize that to customers. So we know there's a lot of studies that confirm that more than 5 payment methods, they kind of hinder the process. It's tricky for the customers, gets them confused. So how can I, as a merchant, have, 20 payment methods integrated to my checkout experience, and then by a customer's demographic, find a better way to show to you that, shop in my store with me, and I know you like to pay with card payments. Or if you're logging through a iOS device, so I can show you some maybe Apple Pay payments. So for me, it's all about revenue per session. Customer adoption is a huge thing for us too. And at the end, personalization, because I want to present to you the easiest way for you to pay, not all of them. All of them looks a bit messy, they don't know what it is, it looks less trustworthy sometimes. You have too many of unknown payment methods for that cluster of customers. So for us, it will be revenue per session and personalization, yeah.
Cool, and I think when we had our session, you said as well, you don't just take on anything that comes along, do you? It's got to have that consumer demand.
Yeah,
first.
that's the thing. Sorry. The thing is, for example, open banking, for me as a product person and looking at the market, is something that it's going to happen. It's safe. Once you get customer adoption, it will look like something that you want to show there. But if I get my better customer, my favorite customers at Danelm, they're a bit older. They don't know what that type of payment is already. So the thing is, how can I have to talk to them and understand, would you adopt this? Because if I offer you a payment method, you're not as much likely to convert than the other. I'm actually just making it harder for you to pay. It's a very expensive customer when you get to checkout, especially retailer. You have to find the color, the size, you have to measure things. We invest a lot of money in marketing. And when you get there, if I show you something you don't trust or do not convert for your specific needs, it is something you have to take into account.
Cool. And obviously, lastminute.com, a different market. So, what are you doing to reimagine? But it'll be different from Danelm.
I think in a way it's similar. We are always testing and trying to figure out based on all the possibilities that we have, so geography, devices, also tiers of customers, like how they would prefer to pay. And I think like APMs, they come to help us to customize the experience, to bring to retail a payment that is similar to what they are used to send money to friends, to pay family, to pay in store. So as Thiago said, we are trying to integrate as much as we can, like when it makes sense for the business, but also to give local payments possibilities to customers.
Cool. So, it sounds to me like the banking world can learn a lot from what you're doing.
Yeah.
Dave?
Yeah, so just carrying on your themes, the how, I think, is really interesting to quite a lot of people. So are you using payment orchestration? Are you doing things that allow you to test really easily without having to make huge investments?
So we try to do proof of concepts whenever it's possible to try to measure the results. And also, I believe data is the best answer that we can have. So we try to perform A/B tests as much as we can, not only trying to put each payment method against different possibilities, as I said, so geography or tiers or even the kind of product they are buying at lastminute.com, but also trying to figure out the best way to display it. Because for us, it's interesting. We can see the behavior that, of course, Gen Z is mobile first, I would say. But all the other generations, we can see the behavior that usually they start on the mobile, but to finish their purchase, they go on web. Because I'm not sure, like I feel that we have this feeling that buying holidays is important stuff, and we need to do it on desktop.
Yeah.
So we also trying to manage this behavior to also present the best way to pay it, and even understanding per device, per customer, what should be the best option.
That's great. And you mentioned something earlier about choice, and at that golden moment of checkout, losing a customer. At Super, where I most recently worked, the way that they solved that with open banking is by offering a reward at the checkout. So incentivizing the consumer to use this payment method that the merchant wants you to use. And it works really well. And when you don't do it, it doesn't work so well, right? So it's that open banking, account-to-account infrastructure, unless there's huge adoption in a market already, you need to provide incentives for the consumer to actually make that step and take that leap to test this thing that they've not used before. And a really neat way is the merchant offering a reward. So a cashback or a cash incentive on their next transaction to incentivize them to come back as well. So this transaction is low friction, low cost, and then the next one has some sort of cost with the reward to it. And when done properly, we were seeing up to about 80% share of checkout.
Why would you want to push them towards open banking? Is that because it's a lower cost for the retailer to do it?
Yeah,
So the incentive is going to have to also be pretty low, isn't it?
correct. Or the savings that they could make, they can offer 2 to 3x that amount of savings in a reward because the redemption of that savings is about 50%. So about half of the people that actually get an offer redeem the offer. So there's a 2 to 3x opportunity there to offer more than you're actually saving.
Okay.
And that does drive adoption, and we have seen really good usage there.
Cool.
Yeah.
And from an innovator's point of view, you're constantly reimagining payments and alternative payment methods. How are you advising your retailers?
Yes, I actually wanted to comment on international market, as Karina mentioned, because we help our clients to expand globally as well. And I think that we are now in a very interesting point where we can see the intersection of two global trends. Because from one side, we can see the rise in consumer power, and from the other side, the global digitalization happening. So, and from this perspective, we can see more and more people are being involved in the financial ecosystem, and especially people from the emerging markets who were previously unbanked, and they can easily skip the step of having credit cards. So they can turn to APMs from this side, and it is very important from the retailer standpoint to be able to offer the right payment methods in different markets, to be able to access this audience and to convert them. So from our side, we strive to collect as many payment methods as possible globally to allow retailers to access this audience.
So you're about, obviously, you have to bring in everything because, you don't know what your customers are going to want next. So you have to be at the forefront of that. But for the retailer, really you need to prioritize, don't you? Because, nearly every day a new alternative payment method is, coming to the fore. So, how do you prioritize, David? What advice do you give?
Really work with partners that have got all the options available, or work with orchestration companies that can help you get there very quickly without the overhead and the burden of trying to do it yourself.
So you need to future-proof by working with the right providers in the first place.
Yeah.
Providers that are, when you're ready, they're able to sort of pop up what you need, when you need it, in what geography, yeah?
Exactly, and then the fact that it's there and available then allows you to do the testing that you want to do, and easily without having to really pay for it.
So from my point of view, right, what do you mean by testing? So, how do you test a new payment method?
Well, I think from my side, something that really helps is doing that through our payments provider. Right now, for us at Danone, it takes longer to negotiate how much we're going to pay than for my team to integrate a new payment method. Usually, you have a component from your PSP that you can deploy in a month and a half, 2 months to have a proof of concept. But it's really important for us to have up-to-date documentation, to have a good understanding of what you're doing, to have asked your customers if you want that. For us, when prioritizing payment methods, it's about understanding the customer, but then there's also what's the business goal behind it. Do I want to sell more higher price furniture, higher price items? So how's the economics currently? Is the market shrinking? So do I need to give people more affordable options? And then in the end is this something that my customers really want or are going to use? And then back to your point is, if I have a segment of customers, younger customers or really digital customers, can I offer them some incentive to use this payment method that it's cheaper and it makes actually our lives easier at the payment side because every time we add something, there is the journey the customer has itself, but then there's a whole settlement structure behind it, and that's a lot for us to do. And then when new payment methods are approaching merchants, a really good thing to do is give us something to try out really fast. Because I mentioned this to you when we were having a conversation earlier. Sometimes I feel that payment methods and PSPs, they overestimate how much merchants know about payments. We know a lot about our business, but then when you start talking about 3DS, there's 150 fields in 3DS. How do I explain that to my risk team? So if you have something easy and you have data, insights, or something that I can try really fast, is the best way to convince me and the business to kind of go with that approach.
So the payment providers have part of the role of the payment providers, and you know, when they market themselves, they always talk about themselves as being the experts and, you know, sort of the people behind the payments, if you like. What you're saying is you actually want them to be those advocates, those educators. It's forums like this, but also what we get from our PSPs, our, you know, merchant acquirers. We want them to constantly be feeding us with knowledge.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you have like examples of what happened in similar markets, it's way easier to. I went to a workshop the other day where it showed what effects, you know, sending more or less information to issuers has on 3DS frictionless or frictionful journeys.
Yeah.
And that was the best thing for me because, you know, I didn't even have to try it. It wasn't a promise, but it was a potential. So that is something that for me as a product manager, it helps me to prioritize something in my roadmap, and then I can develop.
I mean, actually, the other thing I was thinking was, you know, when you're prioritizing alternative payments methods, obviously you're looking at alternative payment methods that people, you know, are asking for and want to use. But actually, you also want an alternative payment method that it has some value to it in terms of, you know, sort of bring something to you. So, you know, give me an example of what, you know, a perfect alternative payment method is for a retailer. And who, you know, anybody can answer this, but you've obviously got an answer.
I have something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go
So
for it.
it's not like a silver bullet, but there's something that Klarna is doing that's different than other payment methods. That Klarna brings customers with them. So every other payment method that I add is how can I help you at checkout that is already my customer to buy something. Klarna, you can see new customers shopping because they use the Klarna app. There's a bad side to that, which is you see a lot of more chargebacks coming from Klarna because people are using the app to return items instead of calling us or contacting us. So I think there's something really interesting in building a community around, you know, and knowing who's the customer. As you know, Klarna is very young. If you look at the marketing they do, so they are targeting a specific audience, and they're helping us kind of get in touch with that audience through their payment method. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I can add to it. Like I feel that in the end of the day, each payment method is specializing and trying to everyone is trying to move forward. Like each one knowing more and more about their own data, about their own customer experience. So sometimes when we integrate with new payment methods, it's really important for the retail company and the payment provider to understand that we are together in one team, and we are trying to reach the same goal, because at the end of the day, like I know that Klarna has this different example, but the customer is not concerned who is providing the payment method they choose. Like they want the chair from Donell, for example. So it's really important for us to partner up with all the payment providers so we can understand all the funnel. Because I feel that with also the evolution of the APMs and with different the different possibilities that we have, it's really important to understand that it's a unique funnel of conversion. It's a unique, it's the same experience for the customer. It's just one thing. It's not until here, it's the retail, and after that, it's the payment provider. So for us, it's also important to build this kind of relationship with payment providers that we can work together toward the same goal.
It sounds to me like, yes, we're all in the technology industry. Yes, we all, you know, sort of love the technology stack and the digitization of life. But at the end of the day, we're all part of that chain, and it has to work. So we're all interlinked, and actually it's the layer of strategy that you get over that sets your partners apart. You know, let's say they all do the same thing roughly. You know, I know that's not true, and I'm sure you'll argue with that, Irene, in a moment. But ultimately it's that strategy layer, you know, David, maybe you talk to that because that's a lot of what you do, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. So there's another point around the payment gateway or PSP is one way to unlock APMs and turn lots of different options on. The other path there is the e-commerce platform. So the platform might have integrations directly with local market APMs as well. And you know, putting all your eggs in one basket is never a good thing, right? So having optionality and de-risking that technical layer, so you have two PSPs and multiple APMs to enable different strategies. I'm sure you guys do this. You know, is the best path forward, right? And
are you talking about payment orchestration, or are you talking about under that?
It's a little bit under that. Yeah.
Yep.
So you could very easily set up a situation where you have one PSP and your platform, and your platform has a few alternative payment methods that are important by market already integrated. Which one do you want to do? Are you going to do both? Are you going to do it via the PSP? There's a lot of arguments to say consolidate, put everything in one place, make sure that you can run your risk engines, etc., in exactly the same way. But there's also a lot of arguments to say de-risk and open up different doors. So you can test quickly, get something in market very easily, while maybe the PSP is building it, potentially.
You're getting a lot of nodding heads here from the retailers, so
Good.
I think I was hoping for a bit more of an argument on my panel. So, you know, it's all coming back down to you, Irene, isn't it? You know, so, you know, that relationship with your, you know, your sort of payment services provider and how crucial it is. How do, you know, I know you've got offices in 16 countries. You know, each country probably has a different profile for alternative payment methods. How do you advise on that prioritization?
Yeah, sure. So definitely this relationship between US retailer and payment partner, so it is key. And it is, don't be afraid to ask your payment provider for many things because they can advise a lot on the payment landscape, on the consumer preferences. And when it comes to prioritization, I think from our perspective, so we advise to analyze 3 dimensions. So first of all, it is market dynamics, to understand the local payment landscape, customer preferences, and how your customers are expecting you to provide payment options. So, and we understand that it might be very difficult to analyze each market separately. So, but that's where we are as a payment provider to provide payment insights on each market. And second of all, it is the economic impact of integrating the payment method. So here it comes to all direct and indirect costs of this payment method, not just processing costs, but also FX rates, cost of change, cost of implementation, cost of support these payment integrations. And the third dimension is technical. So how easy is it to integrate this payment method? From this side, I think it's best to always prioritize payment providers who offer one API and don't require to do additional integration when you want to add payment method.
Another interesting point, if I may, a company called Pagos out in the US has just released an AI to help businesses with exactly this question. So you say, here are our markets, here's our priorities, here's our business strategy, can you help us with our payments plan? And the AI feeds back a plan. And it will recommend certain PSPs and APMs market by market for you very, very quickly. So what normally would be a consultant's role, AI is doing.
I think you've got to look at it this way, haven't you? You've got to, you know, obviously AI is going to, you know, and is disrupting the world, but right now I wouldn't trust my whole payment strategy on AI. You know, I'd want to also canvas other types of views. So although it's like great to talk about, and it's not in the, you know, it's in the near future, we know. Maybe I'm a bit of a skeptic. Maybe I'm a bit old-fashioned, and maybe there's people out there using it for everything. But I always think you're going to need that human-centric side of things as well. Do you agree?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that on that point, identity is going to be the gold of the future. And I think it was touched on previously. In the e-commerce and digital space, how do you know if you're dealing with an AI or selling something to an AI who's trying to fraud you?
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? And the only real way is identity and proving that you're actually dealing with a person. So if that's not part of the strategy already, it probably will be fairly soon.
I mean, I'm always thinking, how can AI help us in payments? Because you can see multiple, like, creating content these days, helping with search when you have a website. But in payments, I was trying to understand where it will go. But helping us with that, it will be something that I'd be interested in seeing. It's so complex. If you look into even trying to do a simple thing as, what customers do you want to enforce a bit of stronger authentication process or a lighter one? If you go into your PSP or you go into your payment methods and you have to set up that by yourself, it's like you're going to be in a rabbit hole, like trying to understand all of the things. It's very complex. Every payment method has its own unique ways to, analyze risk. So I would love to see if AI could help us with that. Maybe it could be a light touch at first, but then in the future, maybe choose my orchestrator, choose my payment method, but I wouldn't do it right now, but.
Out of interest to my panel, but also the audience, are any of you using AI in payments at the minute? If you are, could you put your hands up? We've got one there. That's good. I can't, to be honest, I can't see, so that was bloody useless, wasn't it? But I don't know if you saw how many hands went up. I definitely saw one.
Yeah.
So I think that's an area, to the point of view of the industry and the innovators, it's an area where we all need help, I think, And, this complex area of alternative payment solutions, pay by bank, digital wallets, buy now, pay later, biometrics. Just reading that list there is confusing me. How is it affecting the growth of the online industry, the retail industry? What are we see? The whole idea is to make it easier for customers. Is it doing that? Are you seeing, a sort of better conversions at the checkout as a result of all of these options?
I think it has a lot of factors. I think it depends customer adoption, but also like culture of like where your market is.
Yeah.
So for example, in the UK, we know that iOS devices, they dominate the market. So you can clearly see how they shape the checkout experience. How many people, because when you say biometrics, if you ask our customers, they're like, by what? They're not going to know what it is.
They don't know the word,
but they do it every day when they open their iPhones. And when they pay with Apple Pay, they don't even notice that that's happening behind the scenes. So this is something that it changes, but it's a cultural thing, because in here, iPhones are something that it is a great amount of people that have it. But then when you bring, spread your cost propositions, it's not as adaptive because, the market is used to, the customers are used to pay in one installment, pay right there and then, and they are scared about, getting in debt or something like that. If you go to Brazil, everyone pays installments. Nobody pays right there and then. So there's differences in, culture and technology adoption. So we can clearly see, as I give the example for Klarna, a younger generation uses Klarna, and then Apple Pay, card and wallet type of payments, they're something that customers don't even notice that they're happening. So the thing that I believe is like, how can we get support from other technologies? Security is a major thing nowadays, especially in payments. But then how can we get on board with those innovations and bring them into our little remit of like paying for goods in digital spaces? Yeah.
It does make you think. You can never get out of this industry, can you, once you're in it? Because you never stop learning. How about yourself? What sort of growth prospects are you seeing from all these alternative payment options?
Yeah, on biometrics, I think, actually, I'm personally expecting that with PSD3, we're going to have an increase of adoption of biometrics in general for authentication. Personally, I like it. I think it could help us to reduce friction in some flows, in some use cases. But in the end of the day, I think it should be transparent. So as the customer used to do on daily basis, so if they use their face to unblock the phone, they could use it to approve a payment, but without the name, without like exposing too much the name of the technology or what's behind, like the transparency of it, I think it's quite good and could help us to reduce friction, for example, for open banking payments, for redirections, authentications, and so on. But yeah, in general, lastminute.com, we've seen a higher adoption of payments into installments. We build like a in-house product, and we also have other providers for buy now, pay later options. And it's quite interesting because the ticket is quite high when you're talking about a family holiday for 2 weeks, I don't know. So we have an interesting adoption, and we think it's a key payment option for our market, for our business. Yeah.
Are you looking at the data every day in your businesses for this kind of thing, or is it like, you know, so
And it's really interesting to look at it, because one of the things that I look every day is share of wallet, how things are performing. And then you see, I don't know, an outage in one of the payment methods. You see which one grew because of that one fall down. So you can see, you know, how customers, they have preferences, and But then what's really interesting also is we did the other day a redesign to our checkout. We had, when you shop through your smartphone, some of the payment options will be below the fold. So we redid it, so every payment method will be like right there, we don't need to scroll. And we saw people migrating from one payment method to the other, and that affects average order value. People tend to spend more or less depending on the payment method they use. We still cannot explain it, because, I mean, you have your basket already. Why will the payment method influence how much you're going to spend? But then at the end of the day, it wasn't a successful experiment. We were selling more, but less revenue, because average order value was lower. So it's really interesting how these things play out in between them. And you can clearly see if one of them went up, the other one went down. It's a given,
Wow.
I think what we're seeing, and what I saw when I was at PayPal, was very, very clear when merchants are entering new markets or launching something new. Going with a payment method that's trusted in market helps massively and cuts down that risk or fear that the customer might have.
So would PayPal be one of the first, you know, like you'd go with, just to make, is that your test and learn platform?
Yeah, that definitely
method?
was the case with a lot of the merchants we worked with. They would go, okay, we know that the brand is trusted, we know people use it in market, okay, let's just go.
Yeah.
Alongside credit card and debit card, which wasn't ever designed to be used on the internet, really. So, you know, you put those things together, and merchants can get into market quickly, test something out, and then optimize from there. And maybe add local market preference that are in addition to those main ones. So yeah, definitely would see that as an entrance or a new market tool to gain trust, really.
Cool.
Yeah. From our side, we try to experiment a lot with different payment mixes and how it affects conversion in the end and the checkout flow. And actually, what is interesting, because from one side, we see more and more APM-only merchants now, but at the same time, there are still some very conservative, traditional, who stick to cards, even if they try to accept payments worldwide. And I think that's my favorite case, when those retailers, they try to accept payments globally, and then they tend to deprioritize some particular countries or market because they don't see good conversions from there. But then when we try to add just one payment method for a particular country, like Pix for Brazil, for example, which works best, and it can instantly lift conversions up to like 30-40%, because international cards, they represent just around 9% of payments landscape of those country. And I think another interesting experiment was for one Italian fashion retailer, well known, and even though that they process payments in Europe and they offered cards, but then we tried to check the transaction data, and obviously they knew their customers themselves, and we decided to add a couple of more additional payment methods like Alipay and WeChat Pay, and because they had a huge portion of Chinese audience, And so it also lifted the conversion and even drove new sales.
I was going to say that must be a way to, sort of open growth up quickly.
Definitely.
For certain types of retailers. Have any of you experimented with those channels?
Not yet, but you mentioned something that it's really interesting. If you talk to a risk team and a procurement team, they're usually involved when you're trying to bring a new payment method or new APM to your checkout. They're very conservative. So the other day we were trying to do something that's kind of already a commodity on the market, which is save card details. So everyone does that. We don't do it yet, but when I mentioned that, oh my God, I went through a whole thing trying to explain what is card tokenization, what is network tokenization, and it is really interesting because there's a people context into trying to add this to the business, because people need to trust what you're doing, they need to know the technology. So I think biggest part of the challenges that we do have is not actually adding payment methods to checkout, it's convincing people in the business that those will work. So for something that everyone is used to, click here to save your card details, so it's easier for you to buy when you're here again. I went through, I had to do a lot of research. I had to bring a lot of data to prove to my risk team that it wasn't us saving card details. We weren't increasing risk. We weren't doing anything like that. But it was a whole battle that I had to fight. Just because my risk team is not used to how fast technology is evolving in that sense. So it's really interesting to see that it's sometimes more about the people than the technology itself.
It really is. I'm learning more about stakeholder management than I am about alternative payment methods. Well, we're nearly at the end of our panel, and I'll say thank you now. But before we sort of complete, I think what would be your sort of landing message to this audience? If this is a complex world, but there's people out here that obviously can teach us things, but we can teach them things. What would you give them as your sort of last takeaway as we sort of come to a close here?
I think for me it will be what I mentioned around people and building relationships. Because sometimes I work with a technical team that we do develop stuff for the website. So we have a lot of priorities to do. So when I talk to someone about open banking, I might not be able to do it right there and then, but I need them to help me guide my risk team, my procurement team in a journey, teaching them what it is and giving me data and insights about the market itself. If I have a good research, if I have good insights from other markets or similar markets in other countries, if you can help me out helping my team understanding, okay, so the UK is a very mature digital financial market in that sense. Sometimes it is a journey of convincing people and then it gets to a point where, okay, I understand the value, now let's do a POC, let's test this. So for me is do not overestimate that the merchant knows about what you're talking about. You need to kind of take them into a journey telling, hey, biometrics is this, 3DS is this, my payment method differs from this to that because of this. So it might take a while because it is complex. But
I think we need an alternative payments methods university. That's what I think we need.
Right, yeah, because I mean, even behind, when you talk about payments to people, it's just a button, but behind the button, there's so many financial processes happening. You need to see the money coming from somewhere. You need to dispatch the goods to be able to recognize that as revenue. You need to get your order management system to also recognize that. And then how do you returns? How do you do your refunds? How you deal with chargebacks? So it's a whole world on itself.
And we haven't even spoken about fraud.
Right? I mean, fraud is a whole other thing. No fraud. My risk team, they are completely pro-customer. So anything we can do to protect the customers, we will do. So if it's enforcing 3DS to 100% of customers, we'll do. If it is, and this is what scares them the most, is when you bring a new APM and you're not able to convey the message that it is safer than what you're actually using. Half the time I have to explain to them, what I'm doing is actually safer. Having card tokens, it's safer than typing your card details.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a tough message to translate from tech to business sometimes.
Thank you so much. Quickly, down to the rest of the team here, maybe starting with Irene this time. So what would be your final message to our lovely audience?
Yeah, I would say there are many alternative payment methods, especially globally. And there are many providers who offer more or less the same payment methods. Sometimes it's, I think, very difficult for a retailer to choose the provider who offer the same payment method. So, and from this side, it is very important to try to speak with them and to understand the level of complexity behind, because and to choose the provider who offer the direct connections if possible, because many of the providers, they're just reselling payment methods from some aggregators, and this resulted in the higher costs, the more complex support levels, and the poorer experience for the end users. So in this way, it is always better to prioritize the provider who offer the direct connections.
Keep it direct.
Yes.
Okay, that's your final message. And Dave?
I would echo that with the, choose the right partner message. So you work with the right partners to get to the right markets, the right APMs that you're looking to turn on easily, and de-risk it by choosing two.
Two. So yours is direct, yours is choose two. Do your due diligence. Put them through that beauty parade. Make them work for it. Yeah. And your final comment?
For me, I would say build a process inside your company and with the providers that you work with, so you can test easily, you can show initial results, you can convince stakeholders easier that that's the direction that we should go. Use all the possible ways of testing, fake doors, A/B tests, proof of concepts, all of that. And then, because my gut feeling is that it's just, we have a lot of APMs, but they're gonna grow for sure, and they're gonna grow fast. So we need to also test fast and see what our customer wants from it.
So not all APMs are created equal.
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so.
Okay, well, thank you very much, panel. That was absolutely fascinating. We now have a little break, so everybody, if we could be back here for 11:10, and we'll be talking about payment strategies to accelerate e-commerce and online marketplace success. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.